Chiefs Kingdom. The Week 13 loss got even worse after the results on Sunday and some major injury news for the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to break it all down today on today's episode of the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. My name's Jackson Durham, and like I said, you are watching the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports. We always appreciate you joining us. Here is what's on today's agenda. So like I said, off the top, major injury news. We've actually got a couple players dealing with injury situations coming out of that game against the Cowboys, and we're going to address them all. And then we've also got some results from Sunday that majorly affect Kansas City's odds to get into the postseason. And then I'm going to tell you guys what those odds are looking like after Week 13. But before we get into all that, I need your guys' help. I know my real ones know this. I know the people who are already subscribed, members of our kingdom here, know we cover everything you would ever want to know about the Kansas City Chiefs all season long. We're not going anywhere, no matter what happens. If these guys do get in the playoffs, if they don't get in the playoffs, we're going to have off-season content for you. Hopefully have playoff content for you, and then we'll have draft content as well. And we'll keep it rolling all the way into next season and many more seasons to come. So join our kingdom here. Join the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports and subscribe today. But let's get into the injury news. So off the top, guys, I'm going to keep it a buck. This sucks. Josh Simmons, fractured wrist. If you missed it, if you didn't see the Cowboys game, or you just missed the play that this happened on, the way it goes down makes it sting even more because it was a friendly fire incident from Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt tried to come in, support on a block, comes in, throws the elbow right into Josh Simmons' arm. And you see Josh kind of hobble away after that, arm just limp at his side. And you knew immediately, I was watching that play, I was like, that's probably bad. That is probably very bad. And sure enough, Matt Verderame tweeted yesterday, I'm told that while the Chiefs expect Josh Simmons to be out long-term with a fractured wrist, that's not the case with Jawaan Taylor. Taylor, who suffered a tricep injury on Thursday, could play next week versus the Texans, depending on how he feels throughout the week. And we'll talk about Taylor in a minute, but let's focus on Simmons for a second, because if there was anybody along this offensive line that we didn't want this to happen to, obviously, anytime you're dealing with an offensive line injury, that's going to be a major stinger. But Josh has already missed a decent amount of time this season, guys. He's missed 4 games earlier this year due to a personal issue. And while that wasn't something that he could control, I'm not blaming him for that. That's valuable development time as a rookie in this league that he's missed out on. And now the rumor is, and it hasn't happened just yet, I'm a little surprised it hasn't happened just yet, to be honest with you guys, that he is headed to the injured reserve. And that would knock him out for a bare minimum 4 games. We've only got 5 left on the schedule. It is hard to see the Kansas City Chiefs reactivating him at this point, if it's only for that 1 game. And obviously that'll be dependent on where they are in the playoff picture. But if you lose another one, I'm not sure we get Josh back this season. And that is a huge bummer. But like I said, Jawaan Taylor, also injured. He came up briefly in that tweet from Matt. He's dealing with a tricep injury, and this seems to be a much more week-to-week situation. So big win on Jawaan Taylor not being out. Because, guys, but look at this depth chart right now. This is the offensive line we are heading into Week 14 against the Houston Texans with. And if you haven't watched the Texans this season, that's about the worst possible team you could head into with a weakened offensive line, short of maybe the Denver Broncos. Houston gets after the quarterback. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, they've got some guys up front. And if this is the group, they're going to feast on Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be very tough. We need Jawaan Taylor to pull through for us in this one. So fingers crossed big time that he can be there. And lastly, Bryan Cook. Left on the first drive of the game. Initial speculation was that this was going to be a high ankle sprain. That is not the case. That is a huge win for Kansas City, guys. Because look, is Bryan Cook a world beater? Absolutely not. And it's not clear 100% that he's going to be available in Week 14 just yet. But the fact that he doesn't have a high ankle sprain is a big win, because I don't think it's a coincidence that the first drive that we do have Bryan Cook out there, we shut the Cowboys down. They throw an interception. We get a great blitz. And then as soon as he's out, that Cowboys offense is up and down the field all game long. It's not that Bryan Cook is a world beater. It's not that he's the key to the game plan, but you lose one guy like that, one starter who's incredibly valuable, it can throw the whole thing off. So I know, a lot of injury news right now, guys. A lot of stuff to worry. Is this time to get stressed about Kansas City coming into Week 14 with all the injuries that we're dealing with the playoff odds on seemingly thin ice? We're going to get into those more in a minute. I feel like it is a little bit time to worry, especially when you look at what happened in Week 13 after we played our game. So obviously we lose to the Cowboys on Thanksgiving, ruined the holiday, for me at least. And then the holiday gets even worse, gang. On Sunday, if you tuned in, absolutely nothing went our way. I remember I gave you guys a Week 13 rooting guide last week, and it was the opposite of exactly what went down. The Bills beat the Steelers. We didn't want that to happen. The Jags beat the Titans. Absolutely didn't want that to happen. Chargers beat the Raiders, and the Texans beat the Colts. And that Texans-Colts result is a little bit interesting because as we take a look at the AFC playoff picture, in some ways it hurts us, and in other ways it kind of helps us. It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So you see us all the way down in others at 6-6, 3 games back of the Chargers and of the Bills. And I say 3 games, even though 8 minus 6 is 2, because we have head-to-head losses to those guys. So you're going to have to get to 9 wins to jump in front of them, or at least 1 more win than they have. You can't tie them and get ahead of them. However, you may note, joining the wildcard crew this week is the Indianapolis Colts. And unlike the Bills and unlike the Chargers, we do have a head-to-head win over them. So that one is very important. We're going to talk about that more later. So coming up, we're going to talk about the Chiefs' playoff odds. But before we get into that, I got to give a quick shout-out to our friends at PrizePicks. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's the holiday season, guys, and it's the best time of year for sports. Bowl games, basketball matchups, playoff pushes, it is all happening at once. And while you and I are out making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which game to watch, there is one place where it feels good to be right, and that's PrizePicks. Rashee Rice has been going off for us lately, and I have been placing a lot of PrizePicks on him. Performances from him could earn you some major dough on PrizePicks. And look out, guys, new feature alert. PrizePicks now has early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. That is absolutely huge. And also huge is my lineup for Monday night. So I am going with the more on Drake May's passing yards and the more on Jackson Dart and Stephon Diggs' touchdowns. I think all of this is just too easy. You can tail me on that lineup. You could fade me on that lineup, but definitely do it at PrizePicks because I love how straightforward PrizePicks is. I just don't have to spend a lot of time trying to calculate my payouts like on other apps. They make it easy with their payout multipliers, whether it's just a simple 3 times or a big 2000x. PrizePicks makes it easy to understand how much I can win. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. So as I promised you guys, the Chiefs' playoff odds, as of right now, after the loss in Week 13, after all of the results going against us in Week 13, currently sit at 36%. We have fallen below the 40% mark, guys. That's bad. It's not good at all. I'm not going to lie to you. These are not great odds. However, they could take a quick jump if you win against Houston. So you beat Houston, we are back to almost a coin flip, 50 or over a coin flip, 51%. But if you lose this one, it's over. I hate to say it's over. 11% chance to make the playoffs. Especially, and that, remember, that's without results from other teams in the AFC. That's more than likely going to get worse based on those guys winning. So you could probably call that more realistically like a 7% chance if you lose this game. It's not great. This game is enormous, and you need to be prepared for it. We have our preview coming out in just a few days. Once again, I'm going to tell you guys, hit that subscribe button. The playoff push is going to be huge. This game is going to be absolutely huge. And there is a ton of Chiefs news coming down the line. Whether it's good news or bad news, You're not going to want to miss it, and we're going to be here to cover every second of it. But like I said, guys, the season's on the line. It absolutely is. If you want to have a prayer's chance of doing what we set out to do at the beginning of this year, of getting back into the playoffs, of getting back into the Super Bowl and winning the damn thing once again, the expectation for every Kansas City Chiefs season when Patrick Mahomes is under center, you've got to win this week. Because look, I'm gonna be straight up. I don't want to do draft videos yet. I don't want to spend the last few weeks of the regular season focused on the offseason. I know you guys don't want that. Let me know in the comments if you do, but I hope you don't. I want to focus on the playoffs. But that all kind of goes out the window if we lose this week. So everything rides on this in a lot of ways. It really, really does. Don't make me start doing off-season content just yet, Kansas City. So we can further stave that off with a couple other things going in our direction. And I'm starting to get hesitant about giving you guys these weekly rooting guides because it just seems to go entirely in the opposite direction. But once again, we'll do it. Week 14 rooting guide. We need the Colts to lose to the Jags on Sunday. And that goes back to what I was talking about earlier. When you think about the way the AFC is likely to shake out, it is best for us that the Colts lose the AFC South. Having the head-to-head over them can give us an opportunity to leapfrog them in the wild card much easier than we could leapfrog Jacksonville. But if Jacksonville ends up in one of those wild card spots, it's going to be much more difficult for us. We are Jags fans this week, which is funny given how we've been rooting against the Jags over the last couple weeks. But the Colts' demise is kind of to our benefit. Next, we need the Bengals to beat the Bills. Easy for us to root against Buffalo. We don't like those guys. We absolutely need them to drop a game right now. And then lastly, we got to root for the Eagles. This is the second time we've had to root for the Eagles on these rooting guides. I hate that just as much as you guys do, but we need them to take down our divisional rivals, the Chargers, on Monday Night Football. You get those three things to go your way, you're going to be looking at closer to 60% odds after this week. And again, that's assuming you beat the Texans. If you don't beat the Texans, none of that really even matters. But it all comes down to week 14. It really does, guys. I mean, if you hadn't lost last week, much less would be riding on this. But with that loss to Dallas, you have upped the ante a lot. The pressure is extremely, extremely high on this week. And like I said, we're going to be here to cover it for you guys. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you spending your time with us. Once again, I've been Jackson Durham. You've been watching the Chiefs Report by Chat Sports, and we'll see you guys next time.